Hey, folks, welcome to the show. We got a good one for you. We're going to continue our coverage of what's going on in Minneapolis. But we're asking the question today, why or how did Minneapolis become ground zero in all of this? Everything from George Floyd to now with the left coordinating their resistance, their insurgency against deportations. What is it all about? Well, one of the reasons could be the 2030 census that's coming up here now in about 4 years, and what that will mean for congressional apportionment, meaning we have seen population declines in blue states and blue cities because they've been run by Democrats for 70 years, and they're essentially, out of the they're out of the wealth. They've been taxed. They're taxing their citizens to the point where they can't survive, and so you've seen a mass exodus. But there's also the deportations, which could also mean that there's going to be less apportionment, less Congress people, less representation from states like Minnesota or California, while states like Florida and Texas gain representation. Is that maybe one of the reasons why all of the fraud that's been exposed, as well as the deportations that are ongoing, is that one of the reasons there is such a coordinated, visceral reaction from the left? Is that why they're getting violent and militant? And again, allegations that the state of Minnesota is actually coordinating with the radical leftist subversives. We're going to talk about that, as well as the AI-generated photos, the mainstream media, and reporting on the death of Mr. Preddy. They're not using his actual photo. They're using an AI photo that makes him look more attractive. Now, why would they do that? We'll tell you. It's part of this coordinated propaganda campaign, just like we saw in the summer of 2020 in the wake of the death of George Floyd. Emotional propaganda designed to pull at your heartstrings. And they know that you don't want to look at an ugly guy. You want to look at one that's more attractive. It's really sick when you think about it. The show starts right now.
The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, folks, as always, we want to encourage you to like, share, and subscribe to this video, whether you're watching on Rumble, whether you're watching on X, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. Please do all the things that you're supposed to do that can help this show grow. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Rob Spencer. Rob, good to have you, as always.
Paul, it is an honor to be on the show, as always, and looking forward to going through all of the topics for the day. Of course, the 2030 census is looming. It's going to be interesting to talk about what efforts are going to be made by both sides to ensure the maximum amount of sort of gain, I guess, or minimizing the loss, depending on what side you're in, for the apportionment, and what's going to happen with all of that, and how much of that is actually driving what we're seeing today. I've got some thoughts on it. I do think it's very, very interesting when you look at what you would expect from certain states. When you look at the most liberal state, if you had to guess, Paul, statistically speaking and by voting records, what would you say the most liberal state is in the union?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I would either say New York or California.
That's where our minds are, right? I mean, technically, California is number 4, and New York is number 5. The number 1 is Massachusetts.
No, that makes sense.
Okay.
I mean, when you think about Elizabeth Warren, yeah.
Sure. And, I know people in the Northeast and Massachusetts. Unfortunately, you have conservatives that live in Massachusetts who are just completely unrepresented. But when you look at a place like Minnesota, it's closer to 14, 15 in terms of liberalness, and it's right there next to South Dakota. South Dakota is as liberal as the southern United States it's as conservative as the southern United States when you talk about Alabama, who is the most conservative state in the union, and Arkansas, where we're like 45, 46, somewhere around in there. So my whole point of it is, it's interesting that it's happening in Minnesota versus a place like Massachusetts, or an even more liberal place, where the access is a little easier, such as California, because it does share a southern border. And so you're saying, well, I can understand maybe why it's not happening in Massachusetts because it's all the way up in the Northeast. But this is Minnesota. Why is this happening in a 60-40 state? Why is it not happening in a place that is, a little further left?
Yeah, the cinephile in me who really loves movies, when I'm doing this headline, what is it about Minnesota? What is it about Minnesota? My brain goes to Back to the Future when they're like, what is it about this date, November 5th, 1955? It's as if the entire space-time continuum revolves around this date we keep having to go back to. Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm
1.31 gigawatts.
What the heck is a gigawatt? Okay, but the point is there's something about Minnesota. We could say it's just a series of events where Nick Shirley exposes the fraud, but you go back to the Summer of Love, the burn, loot, murder Summer of Love, and there's just something really, really specifically corrupt with the Democrats who are in power there and these schemes. And then, of course, you're expected to tie the portion of the money you get from the government back to probably an NGO or directly to a political campaign or that sort of thing. All that is still remains to be seen. But when it comes to apportionment, when it comes to the approaching 2030 census, we're seeing states, Texas, they added, 4 or 5? They redistricted. Indiana failed because of some Senate pro tem in there who didn't like that Trump said the word retard, I think. Is that, or something like that. And now we have Virginia moving. Now, there's interesting news. Virginia trying to basically eliminate Republicans in that state, representation in that state. But a federal judge just issued an injunction against Virginia from doing that. I just saw that right before we came on, saying that if you're going to make a move like this, you're going to have to wait until 2027 to do it. So now this is in the court system, and it'll go up for wherever it is. But it is interesting. If you look at this, ex post here with this map from Interactive Polls, a 2030 census apportionment forecast update. So as of right now, and this again is before we really know. And look, mass deportations, you can find people that say it is happening. You can find people saying it's not really mass deportations. I mean, we need mass deportations for this to really be a thing. But we're not really going to know how many people are being removed out until we get, 4 years down the road. But as of just right now, Minnesota's scheduled to lose 1 seat. Wisconsin, 1. Illinois, 2. New York, 2. Pennsylvania, 1. Is that Massachusetts there? Scheduled to lose 1. Where you have the southern states, Texas getting 4, Georgia 1, North Carolina 1, Florida 4, and at the same time you look at these, you look at Oregon losing 1, California losing 4, and then these Idaho, New Mexico, Arizona gaining 1 seat. So this is just where it stands right now. But I think that one of the reasons you're seeing this visceral reaction, whether the leftist foot soldiers know it or not, the DNC knows it. The DNC, the whole point of the demographic replacement that we've seen through illegal immigration has been wanting these people to vote. That's the whole point. So you also have a situation where, the less, the more deportations you have, the less illegal immigrants you have registering to vote. But unfortunately, and maybe none of the deportations matter. If we could just get a system where we verify that only United States citizens are counted in the census, that's a whole nother ballgame as well. If we could just get to that point, that would be huge.
Which is what Trump tried to accomplish in 2020 leading up to that census. And it went to the Supreme Court, and he lost. And I don't understand the rationale there, and it's because of the Founding Fathers, with the term persons versus citizens. But I've not really gone down the dark rabbit hole and deep dive that would be required to say, like, were there ever times where the Founding Fathers talked about citizens when they meant people and vice versa in our founding documents? And because I truly don't believe that the Founding Fathers, for all of their wisdom, would have foreseen this level of flooding of the country, right?
Well, fundamentally, it's just this level of a nation state abandoning the concept, the definition of a nation state. They would not ever conceive where you would just leave your borders open and just let people come. Like they would have never thought that was going to happen in an unorganized manner, right?
Right. No, the ports were everything, right? It was the military was focused around the ports of entry and who could land here. And, we saw that with the Revolutionary War. And then again, same opponent with the War of 1812. So here's the thing. It's a three-pronged sort of, it's kind of like our child. When our child says, can I do this? Right. And they're asking for permission for something that they've not necessarily earned. And you say no. Well, then can I do this? Right? And then you say no. You've been a terror. You've terrorized your mother today. Whatever. And then they say, well, can I do this? Like we're working down from it, right? And I think that the mentality there is reverse with that three-pronged thing that I'm about to mention. That is, number one, the Democrats want them in the country and to not be deported. And even the most staunch, liberal, crazy leftists want these murderers and rapists gone, right? I fully believe that. Now, there's probably a few that just say, were they really a murderer?
Yeah, they reject the entire premise.
Correct. Yeah, like I don't trust the government and that's all that stuff. But at least that person is a true liberal who's not really trusting the government and all that stuff. But anyway, so then you've got so you can be in the country, not deported. You can be in the country and count toward the congressional apportionment for your state. Okay? That is, not only are you allowed to be here, you count. And if there are more of you, then we have more congressional seats, right? So then there's that third one. Not only can you be here, not only do you count in the census, but we're going to give you a driver's license, okay? Now, they're not going to go forward with what we know is the next step, and that is voting. They're not going to say that. Right? The Democrats know, hey, if you're not a citizen, you cannot vote. But they are going to allow them the mechanisms that allow them to vote.
Yeah.
But you can't do it. It's kind of like how we set that treat in front of our dogs, right? And I'm not calling immigrants dogs. Don't mistake me here.
Oh, Rob.
That's not what I said.
How could you?
But I'm giving you an example. It's like setting that treat right there in front of them. They want to, right? If you're an illegal immigrant and you realize, especially over the last 10 years, right? I mean, the Democrats were very staunch anti-illegal immigration for years, right? But certainly for the last 10 years, we realized that the Republicans are the ones that are hard and the ones that are enforcing these immigration laws. So if you're a liberal, if you're here in this country illegally and you want to stay, you are hoping that Democrats get into power. You are hoping that they stay in power. So if you had this opportunity, i.e. the treat is sitting on the table here, if you had this opportunity and the mechanism to get it, why would you not vote? And if you are voting, you're going to vote for that Democrat who's going to keep you in the country.
And I'll add, if there's a legitimate Republican opponent that challenges the Democrat power in a state like Minnesota, you're an illegal Somali, let's say. And I know there's Somalis that are also have their papers. They need to be denaturalized, by the way. But it literally pays you. It pays to vote Democrat. We now know this because if you go and vote illegally, and now you get to have a daycare that is called the Equality Learning Center, and nobody's going to actually darken the door, except the mailman dropping off your checks or whatever. I mean, that's also what this is. It's a fair deal. Like at a bare minimum, even if you can't legally vote, you're going to encourage. You're going to be for the Democrat because That's the deal. You get to count in the census. You get to be here, like you said. Now you're counted in the census. Now you vote, and you get money from the government to do it. Generational wealth, by the way, not just a welfare benefit, not just food stamps. You get generational wealth because you get to go start a business.
Sure. I mean, I try to live my life by the law, Paul. I'm sure that I speed sometimes and all of that stuff. I try to live my life by the law. But if you were afforded that opportunity to be somewhere where you're not supposed to be, to get money you're not supposed to have, now I would say our morals would kick in and we would say no to that. But you can't sit here and say that that's the majority opinion, because anybody else, it doesn't matter if you're Somalian, Russian, Pakistani, it doesn't matter who you are. If you could come into this country and be here illegally, but yet get benefits, and the government is going to give you money, as you say, not just wealth, generational wealth, and there's really no checks and balances, why wouldn't you do it, right? And so as much as I feel like these people have a lack of morals, the lack of morals really lies with the decision makers and those checking.
You are exactly right there. The New York Post is reporting that Kristi Noem demanded an hours-long meeting with President Trump after she was sidelined amid backlash over the ICE shooting. So you had her and Stephen Miller kind of saying, look, we think this guy was there to actually do violence. We think Preddy was there to do violence to the ICE officers. We've got Trump's comments later in the show about the situation. But they report that Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem demanded a two-hour meeting with President Trump in the Oval Office late Monday after she was elbowed aside amid backlash. Of course, Tom Homan is now in Minnesota. Yeah. Trump held the crisis talks with Noem after he revealed border czar Tom Homan was headed to take charge of Homeland Security efforts in Minneapolis after protester Alex Preddy was killed. Noem has faced widespread criticism after she was quick to brand Preddy a domestic terrorist who had charged at officers while brandishing a gun. Now, let's say here, this story goes on to say that Trump still has confidence in her, okay? But let's just take this. I'm curious, a month from now, 2 months from now, this allegation that he was a domestic terrorist, how is that going to hold up when we find out more information? For example, there is already a story right now, part of the leaked Signal messages. They believe they have identified the user in the Signal apps that was Alex Preddy. And he was clearly, according to the posts on Signal and according to one of the videos, it looks like this was the guy. It looks like he's saying, I'm going to intercept them. I'm on this street. I'm going to go intercept. And this entire network, in my opinion, as we look further into this entire network of insurgents, I think it is domestic terrorism. I think that's what they're organized to do. They're not just there to protest. They're there to literally commit crimes by obstructing federal law enforcement. I think the new allegations or the new reporting on this, if true, it clearly debunks this idea that Alex Preddy was just merely a observer, a legal observer. No, you are, if this is true, it is apparent that this guy was in with the insurgency. And so it's possible that Kristi Noem knew this. And look, I think, well, I'm not going to get into what I think of Kristi Noem. I think she's doing a fair job. I really appreciate that I've seen less and less of her appearances, not like Pam Bondi, that the appearances just keep, meaning on Fox News and that sort of thing. But it's interesting. Maybe she knew about this network. Maybe they knew about the Signal chat already. I don't know.
Maybe.
And that's maybe why, she called him that. And we'll have to wait and see. But
I feel like that's giving her a little bit
too much benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, because I believe that she looked at it and saw a person interfering with law enforcement, then resisting when being placed under arrest, and ends up getting shot to death. All of those actions, to her, in her opinion, were completely caused by him. Now, I think that we can go down that rabbit hole and say, hey, yeah, you know what? If you hadn't been there in the first place, if you hadn't brought a gun, if you hadn't been trying to obstruct law enforcement, all of these things, none of this would have happened. But for her, And I agree with a lot of conservatives who are coming out and saying, hey, you know, even Trump's taking this. He's taking this middle of the road sort of stance on this, saying, let's look at the investigation. He wants to find out. He wants to really let this break down before he comes out and say, this person brought a gun and was trying to kill ICE officers. When she came out and said that he was there with the intent to slaughter, you know, and murder ICE agents and stuff, and you're just like, well, maybe that's what he was doing, yeah. But man, it's really too soon to be.
I
saying
definitely
it.
think the criticism of Noam is fair. Yeah. I'm just speculating. A lot of times, this happens all the time. The media always gets out in front of its skis, and then we find out. We still don't have the body cam footage.
Sure. And
again, my prevailing theory is that the gun he was armed with, he was disarmed and it went off, and that's
we talked
the
about on the show yesterday. Yeah.
But this is the report I'm talking about. I'm talking about this post over on X, Oversight Project. It says ICE writer Alex Preddy's final signal messages ? Again, this is just a report. It's not conclusive. But we don't know for a fact that this user in Signal, because he didn't put his, you know, that he's not listed as Alex Preddy. I don't think, although we'll see. It says we've obtained logs of a Signal chat now marked leave chat, delete chat, where anti-ICE activists directed resources to the place where Alex Preddy was shot. We've ID'd a user, Alvin Q, who may have been Preddy in a new video. And so we see this map here. This is where the shooting took place, and there's a video. We read here, at Friendship Co-op, I'm moving west on 38 to spot, will update. That's just somebody named Alvin Q. There's speculation that this is or was Preddy. And we have a profile URL. I don't know, if this is anyway connected to...
I haven't looked this up. Alvin Q, Preddy,
well, then
Twitter.
That's pretty conclusive. And then we have... this video. So those were ICE agents. They're getting in the car. Excuse me. So anyway, hang on one second.
I like how they talk big as the people are getting inside the vehicle.
Yeah.
When they're outside and you're inside. Get
so
out of here.
There's this report, and so then there's also this report from the New York Post once again that Alex Preddy was known to feds and had a rib broken in an anti-ICE protest a week before he was killed. So, again, you go in one time, you get your rib broken, and you come back for more. This is interesting.
Sure.
I mean, you know, we're getting these stories. Oh, he's just an ICU nurse. But apparently he was very active in this resistance effort, this insurgency, this coordinated insurgency.
If you've not followed this Signal chat gate, whatever you want to, Signal gate here, if you've not followed this is pretty eye-opening, because when you see that there are individuals who are in charge, such as allegedly the lieutenant governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz's staffer, being involved in this. I forget what her official role is, but that not only is in it, but as an administrator. And you look at it and you're saying, okay, so what is their goal? Their goal is to disrupt ICE operations and apprehensions. So they are saying, hey, this person's ICE. And we've all seen videos. If you've not seen the videos of people who have sort of black SUVs or something like that, and these agitators, as they call themselves, what do they say, peaceful observers or something? What do they?
I don't know. I don't know.
Something observer. Anyway, they're trying to say that, but they will, hunt these people down and follow them for miles, and then whenever that person stops, they walk up to them and are like, "Are you ICE? Are you with ICE? Are you with law enforcement?" Right? And the person's like, "No, I'm a pizza delivery guy," or something like that.
Yeah.
So we're seeing the links that they're going to intimidate these law enforcement. Also, this lady sort of getting instant karma here when she picked up a flashbang yesterday, or the day before yesterday,
I saw that. I
hated to laugh at it, but
it's not. This is not the movies.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what is so frustrating about this from a standpoint of, I mean, so many of these people. Granted, they're not victims in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I know that the people are going to freak out. You know that Alex Petty was a victim. He lost his life, but I think he put himself in that position and resisted arrest, and I'm not surprised. Again, I have the stomach for it. We're trying to literally deport all these people. The left's behavior. There's no way you can have the deportations that we're having or the enforcement efforts that we're having and stuff like this not happen. I always knew it would. Again, it's unfortunate. I hope they don't continue, but I fear that they will. But you get that flashbang scenario. It's like, I mean, do these people think they're living in a Die Hard movie? They're not. You're not Bruce Willis, okay? You're not. You're not in a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Like you pick up a hand grenade, it's gonna go off.
Well,
in your
and
hand.
you're not in Grand Theft Auto either, where you just regenerate, or what's the word?
Respawn.
Respawn. Yeah, you're just not respawning here. This is not a video game. You don't get to start all over. But when you see the depth there in the signal chats, in the coordination, the organization, it's incredibly eye-opening when you look at what they're trying to do. And it makes me think about it. Let's look at it on a little bit more of a simplistic manner. You've got a local township. Just pick a township, right? And their police department is known as speed trappers, right? They're the ones that are just trying to get you, right? I mean, it makes me think of Tyronza. If you're a Northeast Arkansas person, you would think of Tyronza. And
do they still do that? I thought the FBI got it.
They got out of there because it was such a bad speed trap.
And finally the feds were like, "What's going on in this little small town? Why are there so many tickets on the interstate?"
They're getting everybody there, and it's a small town, and it's on the interstate, and so the police officers were getting all of these people going, and they'd pull you over for 3 miles an hour over the speed limit. It was pretty bad. But anyway, let's just say that there's a township like that. And these people are known as speed trappers. I'm talking about the police force. And all of the individuals in that community decide that they're going to follow the police officers, blow whistles, bring guns, wear gas masks. They're going to impede traffic. They're going to intimidate other people thinking, hey, are you a police officer? Are you a Tyronza police officer? You think that is going to go over on any other scenario? Mm-hmm. Folks, any person who has ever dealt with law enforcement will tell you, you don't fight with law enforcement on the side of the road. You fight with them in court. And you're going to win if that police officer is doing things that they're not supposed to do. This gentleman, unfortunately, lost his life because he chose to have that battle on the side of the road.
Yep.
Rather than in court.
And they know they wouldn't win in court because what the officers are doing is enforcing federal immigration law.
Sure.
This is a guy named Gene Robinson says, I didn't want to do it, but I have to. You haven't seen this yet. The narrative that he was just filming and the officers got angry is false. The narrative that he was only trying to protect 2 women is false. He, along with others, was actively interfering with a legitimate law enforcement operation. So we have new video, and let me make sure that this, I don't see Grok has fact-checked it, so it looks like this is legit. Here's video, apparently, of him.
I've not seen this.
I haven't either. It's only 10 seconds, but so maybe, who knows, AI disclaimer, maybe, but I don't detect
For our TV
AI.
audience, hopefully there's no language here.
So you see him, that appears.
What is he doing directing traffic here? He's in the middle of the road.
And then there are the ICE agents. And I think that's right before the confrontation. So he's in the middle of the road, clearly obstructing traffic, cars honking, and now here the agents come. And so, I mean, again, we're only 48 hours or 72 hours past, and we're already getting some new angle. Like, what happened in the moments leading up to it? And obviously, I knew that there was going to be more footage. You know, all we were seeing was right before he got taken to the ground. So,
2 things can be true at the same time. Number one, it is a tragedy that this person lost his life. And in fact, if that police officer was culpable because the he wasn't armed and the gun went off accidentally and all of that stuff. If there are charges to be had, then there are charges to be had. And somebody would say, well, we're not allowing for a proper investigation and all of this stuff. You can say all that. All of that information may very well be true. But the second thing is that none of this would have happened had he not been there. None of this would happen had he not gone with the expressed intent to interfere with law enforcement. He does not like the laws.
And he doesn't like that he lost an election. His side lost the election. And so this is
100%.
This is
and you are in a state you're in a city within a state who looks at illegal immigration as not against the law. They look at it through the lens of, hey, all is welcome. You know, everybody who wants to be here can be here. I believe that there are some individuals who need to be looked at through the lens of, hey, they've been here for 20 years. They've been trying to get themselves legal. They were brought here as a child. They've been trying to do that. I'm not in favor of shipping those people home. They're unfortunately at the fault of a backed up immigration system for all these people that are coming in claiming asylum over the last 4 years of the Biden administration. They came in and claimed asylum even though they were not running from oppression. They were just poor in their country. Well, folks, we got poor people here in the United States too. It doesn't mean that we just take all the poor people from all over the world. That's just that's not what we're supposed to, that's not what we have to do as a country. It's not what our Constitution says. But you have these individuals who look at that Constitution, and if they look at the laws and they say, we don't want to follow those laws, we're angry about it. And instead of voting new leadership in there that will change these laws, what we're going to do is try to restrict the enforcement of those laws. That's not the way to do it, folks. It's kind of like, hey, this speed limit should be 75 miles an hour, but for some reason, all of these people in this community here have gotten it to be 60 miles an hour, and it's ridiculous because it's in slowing down traffic and all of that stuff, or vice versa, okay? And you're just like, I don't like this law. And instead of voting new people in to change those laws, you just go out there and stand in the middle of traffic.
Let's create a violent insurgency to get what we want. And again, that's why we're much closer, or maybe even in the midst, historically speaking, of a civil war. So after we're going to talk about this, we're going to take a quick break for about a minute and 20 seconds. But after all of everything that's happened in Minneapolis over the last few days, our show yesterday was about how the deportations must continue. I still stand by that, but there was obviously going to be some pushback. There are people on the right that don't appear to have the stomach for this. And so you knew that the Trump administration was going to face pressure to pull out. As we got off the air yesterday, there were multiple reports that the head of the Border Patrol, Mr. Bovino, Greg Bovino, had been dismissed. Nick sort of reported that, but then apparently we have reporting that Donald Trump himself intervened and nixed that decision. So we're going to tell you about that when we come back. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a minute 20.
I'm Brian Norris, retired Army First Sergeant, husband to Kelly, father of 3 amazing girls, and a lifelong Arkansan who puts faith, family, and fair elections first. When Independence County demanded real election transparency, I led the charge, petitioning voters and winning at the Arkansas Supreme Court. Now, Little Rock bureaucrats are punishing counties like Searcy for putting voters first. That's not real conservatism. It's big government overreach in disguise. That's why Trump allies like General Michael Flynn, Mike Lindell, Justice Michael Gableman, Colonel Conrad Reynolds, Senator Wendy Rogers, and Senator Mark Fincham back me. Together, we'll secure Arkansas's elections and inspire the nation. As Secretary of State, I'll implement President Trump's executive order, verify citizenship, replace hackable voting computers, and build trust with verifiable paper ballots. I'll cut red tape for businesses, harness our natural gas and lithium boom, and attract tech jobs to grow Arkansas strong. This is our fight, our future. Join us.
paid for by Norris for Arkansas.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We were just talking about this. Let's get into it. So after we got off the air yesterday, we had this report, or maybe there was a previous iteration of this report, Nick Sorter referencing it, following our report that President Trump has personally stepped in and saved Greg Bovino's role as Commander-at-Large of the U.S. Border Patrol. My sources tell me Kristi Noem fully backs this decision. Thank you, 47. There was a report earlier that Nick had made, saying that in the wake of this, that Bovino was being pulled out of Minnesota and he was basically demoted after what had happened. Because as we talked about yesterday, it wasn't ICE that shot Alex Preddy, it was the Border Patrol.
Yeah.
Nick Sorter says, I can confirm President Trump was not aware of the prior decision to remove Greg Bovino from his role as Commander-at-Large of the U.S. Border Patrol, nor was Secretary Noem. Trump and Noem fully back Mr. Bovino, and someone down the food chain, as we'll say, will have a rough week.
Then who removed him?
I don't know.
So, this is one of those things where it's like Border Patrol and ICE and DHS, like, who do you work for? Who do you answer to? And who is the one pulling the strings? Because if Trump or Noem didn't do it, then who removed this person?
I don't know. And it really came at a terrible time because, the right was sitting here. I mean, I was sitting here like, okay, what's Trump going to do? Is he going to double down or is he not going to double down? And there was already the Truth Social post where Trump says that he had this conversation with Mike Waltz. And that, and then Trump kind of said, we're just after the violent criminals. We're just after the violent criminals. And there were already people on the right that were like, this just sounds like he's caving.
You're talking about Tim Walz.
Yeah, Tim Walz.
Okay.
What did I say?
You said Mike.
Yeah, sorry.
Mike Walz.
Tim Walz.
Like, who's Mike?
And that this was a cave, and I think we're going to have to wait and see whether or not it is. But the left doesn't care. That's kind of the point here.
Well, they consider it a victory regardless.
They're saying that there was some deal made, though, because there are these clips of Minnesota State Patrol, which has been absent, have now been moving in on these ICE protesters. This was yesterday, or this was this morning is when it was posted.
So this is the state police of Minnesota.
Yes. And you can see them there. Actually,
You are now under arrest. Please sit down and wait for instruction.
now, so the way I understand it is these during this whole conflict, these guys have basically been MIA.
Yeah.
They haven't been doing anything, right? And so people are saying that maybe, this is Tim Walz. And interestingly enough, DC Drano is saying, I find it very interesting that Tim Walz called President Trump to work with him on ICE less than 24 hours after all of the 5,000-plus donors to the anti-ICE domestic terror network were indexed and exposed by Data Republican. I have a feeling a few of those big donors called Walz and said, cut a deal with him to protect them. Again, this is just purely speculative, but if that's true, that is infuriating. That is, now I get it. You want to get the people out, but when do corrupt politicians and their donors go to jail?
Yeah.
None of this changes permanently if you don't put the people organizing this behind bars.
Yeah, I agree with you, Paul. You're caught with your hand in the cookie jar. You're literally caught with your hand in the cookie jar, and that's when you say, okay, and you make some sort of concession. And if that's what Tim Walz is doing here, there's no way in the world, I agree with you, there's no way in the world that is done just by on his own conscience, his own decision-making. Donors control the United States, folks. That is where that deep state is. They're the donors putting that money in there, and they control the United States. They also control the governors, the congressmen and women. That's who controls things. So this, although I don't know if there's any confirmation to this, seems pretty likely.
Yeah,
in my
I mean,
opinion.
it's kind of, there are these data points, and people are trying to make sense of them to get them to make sense. But that doesn't mean that the left is happy about this. According to Derek Evans, retweeting IRT Media, Minnesota leftists have now swarmed, or earlier today, Minnesota leftists swarmed outside of Governor Tim Walz's office after he met with Tom Homan. You would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in that meeting, but this is just 11 seconds. Okay.
Look, that's well within their rights to do this.
That's an actual protest.
That's a protest. They're well within their rights to do that. I have no problem with that.
But they're not happy. And so they're not happy. That kind of makes me, okay, we're trying to get to the bottom of all of this. Here is President Trump. I got something to say about after we listen to this. But this is President Trump getting a question about the death of Alex Preddy.
Or an assassin.
Well, I haven't heard that, but certainly he shouldn't have been carrying a gun. But hey, look, bottom line, everybody in this room, we view that as a very unfortunate incident, okay?
Right.
Everyone,
right.
unless you're a stupid person. Very, very unfortunate incident. I don't like that he had a gun. I don't like that he had 2 fully loaded magazines. That's a lot of bad stuff. And despite that, I say that's a very unfortunate incident.
So, I'm a Second Amendment advocate, and I get 2A guys, he had the right to have the gun. Absolutely, yeah. I mean,
until
he has the right. But if you're committing a felony, then now you're in bigger trouble. Okay, we talked about
any
all
crime,
that, right? But I think just from a common sense standpoint, it is totally true.
Yeah.
If you're going to a protest, bring a gun. If you want, you have the right to do that. Probably not best to plan on interfering with law enforcement. Also, probably not best to have it open, where the officers are going to immediately treat you differently when they see that it's open and that you're up to no good. They're immediately going to treat you more aggressively than they otherwise would if it was concealed.
Yeah,
100%.
Agree. So you and I both carry. We both have handguns, and so I don't know if you took it, but I took the Arkansas concealed carry license class, and it was.
I did a long time ago.
7-8 years ago.
I did a long time ago, but in Arkansas, we're now a permitless carry state.
So at that time, we went ahead and did it because, there's a bunch of real estate agents, and he had cut a deal and say, hey, let's get, because real estate agent, in 2015, there was a murder here of a real estate agent in the state of Arkansas where she was lured and somebody thought she was a millionaire, and she had like $52 in her bank account. It was just unfortunate. So anyway, this class comes out. Now, as you say, you can carry concealed or open, right, in the state of Arkansas without a license. We are a true Second Amendment state. However, there is a caveat. You are not allowed to carry that handgun into a bar. You're not. In the state of Arkansas, if I remember my training correctly from 7 or 8 years ago, you can't carry your firearm into a bar.
I need to double check that. It may have been. I think it's up to the owner's discretion, but bars may be singled out. I can't remember.
So the way it was described to us during our training class was that it was because of the alcohol intake and how the likelihood that tensions could run high with alcohol. Whether I was trained correctly or not on all of that stuff, I didn't look this up because I didn't pre-plan to say this, but I will say it's the same mentality, though, if it is true, the same mentality of why you shouldn't carry, even though you're legally allowed to do it, Paul, why you shouldn't carry a firearm to a political protest where tensions are high, And so...
Yeah, so AI says that, bars are off limits.
Yeah, but why can't you carry a gun into a bar in the most Second Amendment state that you can be in, Paul? And the reason is because the tensions are going to be high.
Yeah.
What do you expect to happen, Alex Preddy? What do you expect to happen when you are out there obstructing law enforcement? You're standing in the middle of the freaking street. You're trying to stop everybody. Then when the police tell you to, the law enforcement, you can call them, that's not the police and all of that stuff. When law enforcement, who are legally allowed to arrest you, tell you to get on the ground and you fight, you just scream, and now all of your supporters want to say that you were murdered. Were you? Does that mean that you deserve a death penalty? All of that stuff? No, but you sure as heck are culpable in it. You sure as heck had some responsibility. You weren't just an innocent person walking down the street who got shot in the face by a random stray bullet. You instigated. You fought against law enforcement and you died. It's a tragedy. And should the police have shot him, that it looking more and more like maybe they shouldn't have. Okay? But once you put yourself into the fire, it's really, really hard to complain about getting burned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's like my grandmother used to say, you mess with, she used more colorful language, but you mess with crap, you get it all over you.
Yeah.
And that's a crappy situation to put yourself into. But again, if you're a foot soldier and you think that you have the moral high ground and you think that Trump's a fascist and you think that this is fascism, then
it's not the moral high ground, Paul.
I know, but
it's not the moral high ground. Even if you do have the moral high ground, bringing a gun, to obstruct people who all have guns, not a smart decision.
Not going to end well. The people with the more guns than you are likely going to win. But anyway, as I sit there and I watch President Trump talk about it is an unfortunate situation. I think that's the majority of the country. That's the way they feel about this. I was struck when I saw that. I was reminded, and this is totally not really related at all. They're going to try to put Donald, if this is not stopped, and I mean all of it, from the deep state all the way down to this insurgency, if this is not stopped, they're going to try to put Trump in jail for the rest of his life when he's out of office. And I hope he knows that. Surely he's got to know that. Surely he has to understand that. And there's no telling what they'll do to all of us. And at this time, I saw this, Tim Pool posted this, that after Biden was sworn in, it only took months for the feds to start rounding up J6ers.
Yeah.
Many were charged with misdemeanors, trespass,
Grandmas.
and were not involved in violence. These people went to prison. J6ers did. And then a year into Trump and Democrat leftist insurgent groups are operating in the open. A year into the Trump administration, these Democrat leftist insurgent groups are operating in the open, Tim Pool says.
Because we're spineless.
And you got independent journalists busting Somali fraud. You got independent journalists busting their Signal Gate chats where they're literally coordinating with state officials, well, apparently coordinating with state officials, and then Kash Patel says he's opening an investigation, and it's like, well,
so sick of
why
it.
wasn't there an investigation already opened? Like, what are you guys even doing?
For a year.
What are you doing? And these people are not going to stop unless they're made to stop, and there just seems to be no urgency, and it just seems like it's a big game. I'm sorry, it seems like it's all a giant game. It's all theatrics, and make me care about the midterms. Sure, I care about the midterms. So what? Trump doesn't get impeached? Okay, great. But then so Congress can keep the majority and do nothing?
And do nothing.
The Republicans
That's right.
do nothing for us.
Yeah. And what's going to happen, Paul, is that even if they did pass the SAVE Act, which, if you're not familiar, it deals with election integrity. You have to prove that you're a United States citizen, all of that stuff to vote in a federal election. Even if they do pass it, they're going to pass it in like August or September.
Yeah, there won't be any time.
And a federal judge is going to say there's not enough time. They're going to put a stay on it. Then it's not going to go to the Supreme Court until 2027. And let's just say they win and the SAVE Act becomes law. You've given over the House. At that point, does anybody believe that if without voter integrity, are the Republicans going to hold the House? No. They might hold the Senate, but they're certainly not going to hold the House. And if they don't hold the House, then Trump is a lame duck president for his last 2 years. We all know that, which means that you wasted the biggest hammer that the forgotten man has ever had. You wasted it. Now, do I agree with everything that Trump does? No. I wish he would come out stronger on certain things and not as strong on other things. But the bottom line is, I don't believe that he's beholden to anybody. If he is, it's nowhere near what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I definitely think there are definite landmines, foreign policy being, the one of them. But
Somebody put it in his ear about Greenland.
Yeah.
I believe that. I don't believe that he just came to, hey, we need Greenland. Somebody has put it in his ear to go for Greenland. But suffice it to say, if the House goes to the Democrats, number one, there's going to be an impeachment. If somehow they lose the Senate as well, there's nothing. You are a dead, lame duck president for 2 years. The only thing he can do is executive orders, which will be completely challenged in court, overridden as soon as you'll never get any of this stuff codified. And so to me, it all boils down to what I said yesterday and what I've been beating, that drum I've been beating for weeks. We've got to get rid of the filibuster.
I totally agree. When the foreign policy, I was, Greenland for sure, but I was more talking about where the conflict between Israel and Iran, or the potential one, and how, we don't have a new war in the Middle East yet. I thought we were going to, a
lot of wars have been solved.
Last year, I definitely did. And now there's still this push for the United States to bomb Iran and that sort of thing. That's kind of what I meant. But when I talked about landmines,
well, Lindsey, people like Lindsey Graham, the warmongers.
Excellent segue. So speaking of Congress, and speaking of how nobody, they're not doing anything, there is no chief rhino than Senator Lindsey Graham. Not only is he a warmonger, recently he is trying to act tough for his voters in South Carolina by saying, I'm going to file a bill to get rid of these sanctuary cities. There's just one problem. Lindsey Graham doesn't actually care about this, or he would have done something a long time ago. But Lindsey Graham is beholden to his Washington donors, to multinational corporations, as well as just generally, DC politics as normal. Mm-hmm. And so Lindsey Graham has now come out and he has said, I want to do something about the sanctuary cities. The Democrats are out of control. And he's only doing this because he's up for re-election, and it's disgusting. It is the Democrat Playbook 101. And so his opponent in the primary is a businessman who I've interviewed before, a really great guy, Christian, by the name of Mark Lynch. And Mark Lynch is reminding all of us why Lindsey Graham was given the nickname Grahamnesty. I don't know if you remember this, but this was back where people would talk about a comprehensive immigration reform.
Yes.
And Lindsey
amnesty.
Graham, basically amnesty. So they called him Grahamnesty. And it comes from a bill that he filed back in 2013 called S-744. So if Lindsey Graham had his way, he wants to talk about being tough on immigration now. But if Lindsey Graham had his way, his bill back in 2013 would have granted legal status to millions of illegal aliens, would have put them in a guaranteed path to green cards and citizenship, would have spent $46.3 billion up front before the border was secured. It would have increased the H-1B visa cap almost 300%, which undercuts American wages, and we're seeing
H-1B visas need to be gone.
Yeah, and and you know what? They need to be gone so that the 90-foot tall monkey statues in Texas wouldn't be erected if we didn't have this nonsense. It also would have included border triggers with loopholes so amnesty moved forward even if enforcement failed. Okay, so this is who Lindsey Graham is, and I just hope the voters of South Carolina are not gullible enough to fall for this again.
Well, South Carolina it's a red state. They're a rational state, and I believe that Lindsey Graham has won because of the R next to his name. And because he talks about, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And let's just be honest, that Brett Kavanaugh hearing carried him. It carried him a long way there in 2020. So
yeah, and he does calculated hits that really cost him nothing. It cost him nothing to say what everybody's thinking. But when it comes to actual action, everybody thought Brett Kavanaugh was being, his reputation, and so he comes out and he makes that, but he doesn't actually do anything.
Yeah. Well, Saturday Night Live made fun of him, and it raised his profile, right? I mean, when is Saturday Night Live making fun of a senator from South Carolina?
Yep.
And they were because he had made such a big name here, right?
Well, and he's in with the Intel oligarchy.
Yes.
I mean, so Hollywood, modern entertainment, SNL, that's all, like, they're going to promote their guys.
Right. If you are truly an America first Christian conservative and you are in the state of South Carolina, you are truly voting for the biggest rhino / warmonger / phony that you have ever cast a vote for when you cast one for Lindsey Graham. We've talked about Lindsey Graham on this show for a long time, Paul. We're extremely frustrated about the fact that he screams America first, but he wants to bomb everybody. That's what Lindsey Graham wants to do. And the man is a hypocrite because, as we saw 12 years ago, 13 years ago now at this point, in 2013, this guy wanted to just do blanket amnesty to everybody. They're like, hey, let's just do this. Okay, that's the same mentality of let's cancel all the student loan debt. You haven't fixed the problem. You haven't fixed the problem. If you want to cancel all the student loan debt, you are still having these universities that are beholden and have more researchers. Stanford University in California has more people on staff than they have actual students. You have created a problem there, and the solution is not throwing money at it. The solution, Lindsey Graham, to world peace is not bombing and doing all of these.
He doesn't want world peace.
No, he doesn't. No, he wants to bomb everybody. He wants to do these regime changes, all of that stuff. And he wanted to do blanket amnesty and start from scratch in 2013. No one with a brain believes that that is the right solution.
And that is how Senator Lindsey Graham got his nickname, Grahamnesty. Now it's time for a public service announcement. If you're out, especially in the Minneapolis, Minnesota area, and you want to go on a date, if you're an ICE agent and you want to go on a date with a girl, I wouldn't recommend that, by the way, but just so you know, there are people like this out there in the dating pool plotting to poison you because you're an ICE agent.
I thought of something good. I think it's stuff in the weird spot. Sabotage tactic, or at least scare tactic. All the medical providers, grab some syringes with needles on the end. Have them full of saline or succinylcholine, whatever. That will probably be a deterrent. Be safe. Okay, for today's resistance tip, I vote, anybody got any poison ivy, poison oak in their yard? Get some of that up with gloves, obviously. Get it in some water, like a gallon of water. Get the poison ivy oak water, and I'm gonna put it into a water gun. Aim for faces, hands. All right, the single ladies where these ICE guys are going have a chance to do something, not without risk, but could help the cause for sure. Get on Tinder, get on Hinge, find these guys. They're around. They're an ICE agent, bring some X-Lax and put it in their drinks. Get them sick. Nobody's gonna die. Just enough to incapacitate them, get them off the street for the next day. Highly, easily deniable. You could get sick too.
Makes you think about it. If you're a conservative, Paul, we do a conservative talk show here every day, and it makes me think about, like, what are you going to do when you go to the hospital and they find out who you are?
And I need medical care. Yeah, they want to kill you.
These are the individuals that are in charge of protecting you in terms of your health.
They're the same people that didn't want to treat you at the hospital if you didn't get vaxxed.
I believe that first thing that she was talking about causes paralysis. If
the choline,
whatever that stuff is, choline something. Sack of crap is what this woman is. And the bottom line is, wherever she's at, and we're seeing this in Florida and some other places, these individuals are coming out from the dark saying that they're not going to treat MAGA folks. And so what we're going to see, hopefully, is those states revoking their medical licenses, whatever those licenses are.
Yeah, and I would imagine this lady probably may be losing her job soon, if she hasn't already.
Well, if you're, where is it? Where was it? VCU? I don't know where that's at.
Is that Virginia? Would VCU be Virginia?
Virginia Commonwealth University. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's a.
Well, anyway, the point is it's
okay.
going out everywhere and, giving anywhere ICE has a presence. Just be careful, ICE agents. Hopefully you guys are married and staying faithful. But if there are any single ICE agents out there, just be very careful who you date because they literally are treating this like they are insurgents and spies.
I want to say this again. This is not an isolated incident. This woman, this mind virus exists, and it's permeating through the entire left.
100%. That's all the time we have for this edition of the Paul Harrell program. I want to remind everybody to like, share, subscribe this video, do all the things, as well as want to give a shout-out to our sponsors, Red Vive Health, New Horizon Real Estate, also Gateway Sight and Sound, T-Guard Bail Bonds, and Sherrod Chiropractic. We will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching.